I never thought silence could hit like a punch to the chest. But that afternoon it did. My name is Amber Reynolds. I'm 38, a project director at a national real estate firm based out of Denver. I just wrapped a major conference in Seattle, and my work trip ended 2 days earlier than expected. I was exhausted, sure, but thrilled. I couldn't wait to surprise my husband Nathan, and especially our daughter Madison. Madison is 8. She has the brightest eyes I've ever seen, and a laugh that usually fills the entire house. I expected to walk in to the sound of cartoons or her tapping around in her mismatched socks. But as I stepped through our front door that day, what greeted me wasn't laughter. It was silent, heavy, strange silence. Then faintly, a wet scrubbing sound. My nose wrinkled at the sting of bleach in the air. I dropped my bags and followed the sound toward the kitchen, every step echoing in that hollow quiet. That's when I saw her. My daughter. My sweet, kind, gentle Madison. On her knees, holding a heavy yellow sponge in both hands, her little palms raw and red. Her blonde hair was tied messily, pieces stuck to her tear-streaked face. She was scrubbing the linoleum floor with trembling hands, rubbing over a spotless patch as if her life depended on it. "Madison," I whispered. My voice caught in my throat. She froze. I rushed forward, took the sponge from her, and gathered her into my arms. She collapsed against me like her bones had melted, her entire body shaking. I whispered, "Sweetheart, where are Grandma and Grandpa?" She didn't lift her head. "They went to the amusement park," she mumbled. "With Lily." I pulled back slightly enough to look into her eyes. "Why didn't they take you?" She hesitated, then whispered the words that made my heart crumble. "Grandma said I had to be punished. For spilling juice," she said. I needed to learn my place. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. Instead, something cold and ancient settled into my bones, a quiet, measured kind of rage. I cleaned her up, washed her hands gently, and bandaged a small, raw spot on her knuckle. We curled up on the couch together, wrapped in a fuzzy blanket, sharing a tub of cookie dough ice cream straight from the container. She rested her head on my chest and told me everything. For the past 3 days, she'd been left at home, while Nathan's parents, Carol and Richard, took Lily, our niece, on outings. Ice cream shops, toy stores, and an arcade. Meanwhile, Madison was given a chore list. She'd swept the back porch, washed dishes, folded laundry, and if she didn't do it perfectly, Carol yelled. Once Madison said Richard told her she wasn't real family anyway. I should have seen it sooner. The hints were always there. Last Christmas, they gave Lily a motorized dollhouse. Madison got a half-shrunken sweater, with a clearance tag still dangling off the sleeve. Nathan brushed it off back then. "My parents are just old-fashioned," he said. But this wasn't old-fashioned. It was cruelty wrapped in nostalgia. When Nathan walked through the front door an hour later and saw the look on my face, saw Madison's puffy eyes and raw hands, he stopped mid-step. "Amber?" "What happened?" I didn't answer. I just moved the blanket so he could see for himself. His face collapsed. I saw it, guilt and something deeper, horror. For years he'd made excuses for his parents, downplayed their favoritism, avoided confrontation. But in that moment he saw the truth for what it was. He knelt beside Madison and gently took her hand. "Sweetheart," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I am so, so sorry. I didn't protect you. That will never, ever happen again. It wasn't a promise. It was a vow." We didn't have to wait long for the storm to return. 2 hours later, the front door opened with a rush of laughter and shopping bags. I heard Carol's voice, first high and chirpy. You should have seen Lily's face on that ride. They both stopped short when they saw me. "Oh, Amber," Carol said, her smile faltering. "You're back early." I stood up slowly. "Where were you, Carol?" My voice was calm even. "We took Lily to Lakeside Park," she said casually. "She had a wonderful time." Nathan stepped forward, his jaw clenched tight. "Why was Madison left home alone, scrubbing the kitchen floor?" Carol scoffed. "She needed to learn responsibility. She made a mess." A mess, his voice rose. She's 8. She spilled juice. Then Richard spoke for the first time. You don't understand. I'm trying to protect this family's future. It was such a strange thing to say. Even Nathan looked confused. But Carol, she doubled down. Frankly, she said, eyes cutting into me, blood is thicker than water. She's not our real granddaughter. The silence that followed was bone deep. Nathan looked at his mother like she was a stranger. Whatever thread had been holding him back snapped. His voice shook not with uncertainty but conviction. You've chosen your blood, he said. Now we're choosing our family. He turned to Richard. I want you both out of our house. I didn't need to say a word. I stood beside my husband, slipped my hand into his, and nodded. And just like that, their power was gone. They didn't leave right away. Carol's mouth opened and closed her face, contorting as she tried to form words that would somehow make sense of the unraveling. Richard looked utterly lost, as if he'd been smacked in the head and couldn't figure out why. Amber Carol began, her voice trembling. Now surely, you don't want to do this. You're overreacting. I'm not, I said gently but firmly. And this isn't just me. Nathan's made his decision too. She's a child, Carol snapped, the mask finally slipping. She doesn't understand the difference between discipline, and Nathan stepped forward. Don't finish that sentence. You think I haven't noticed how you treat her? You think this is about spilled juice? Carol blinked. It's not like we hit her. Is that your bar now? I said. As long as you didn't hit her, it doesn't count. They stood there for another minute, like they might find the right combination of words to reverse it all. But the door stayed closed behind them. The house wasn't theirs anymore. Nathan told them again. Pack your things. You have 1 hour. They left without another word. The next morning, the retaliation began. First, my phone started buzzing, then Nathan's aunts, cousins, and distant family members we hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had very strong opinions. You threw your parents out. You let your wife poison your mind. You're breaking up the family over a misunderstanding. Carol had wasted no time spinning her version of events. In her tale, she was the doting grandmother. I was the unstable daughter-in-law, and Nathan was too whipped to stand up for her. I wish I could say we brushed it off, but it hurt. Nathan spent hours pacing the living room, reading messages, blocking numbers, then unblocking them to read more. They're my parents, he said, more than once, shaking his head like he was trying to force reality to make sense. How could they do this? To a child, I didn't push him. I just stayed close. We were in it together now. And yet something gnawed at the back of my mind. Something strange about what Richard had said that night. I'm trying to protect the family's future. Why would a man say something so odd in the middle of being confronted about child cruelty? That's when Nathan let something slip. It's just weird, he said. For the last month, Dad kept asking about your Genesis project. Kept pressing me about what your firm was planning. I froze. The Genesis project wasn't just another development. It was a multi-million-dollar eco-housing initiative. I was leading a chance to reimagine sustainable suburban living across several Colorado counties. My firm was awarding contracts to small local builders. Dozens of companies were bidding, including Richard's. My skin went cold. You think this was about business? Nathan asked, reading the look on my face. I nodded slowly. I think it's always been about business. Because it made sense. The sudden interest, the fake family dinners, the polite questions about my schedule. Richard didn't care about bonding. He was positioning himself. And Carol, her cruelty wasn't just resentment. It was control. If I rejected them, he'd lose access. If Madison misbehaved, she'd become the weak link. They weren't just bad grandparents. They were strategists. And I'd been their mark. That night, I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the invitation still pinned to the fridge. A formal dinner for Genesis Project contenders, hosted by my boss, Mr. Henderson. Richard and Carol would be there. Nathan sat beside me. "What are you thinking I'm thinking we go?" I said. We show up. We walk in together. He looked at me with something between concern and admiration. "You sure I'm not going to yell? I'm not going to cause a scene. But I won't let them rewrite this story. Not again." He nodded slowly. "Okay, let's do it." The dinner was held at Aveline, the kind of restaurant with white tablecloths and servers who glide more than walk. The lighting was dim and expensive. Polished conversations floated from every table. People talked about markets, timber suppliers, zoning codes, and inflation. Nathan looked handsome in his navy suit. I wore a black sheath dress and pearl earrings, clean, quiet power. We found our seats near the center of the room. I could already feel Carol's eyes on us from across the space. Richard was pacing near Mr. Henderson's table, clearly waiting for the right moment to pounce. Carol, never one for subtlety, strutted over first. Her voice was all honey and arsenic. "Oh, Amber," she purred as Mr. Henderson approached our table. "You look radiant as always, and you're such a wonderful mother to your little adopted girl. Family is just the most important thing, isn't it, Mr. Henderson?" My smile didn't falter. Neither did my gaze. "Thank you, Carol," I said warmly. "You're right. Family is everything. Which is why in our house we value trust, protection, and basic decency. Values that matter in parenting and partnerships." Mr. Henderson raised an eyebrow, clearly sensing something under the surface. I turned to him, letting my voice shift into something cool and professional. "Speaking of values, Mr. Henderson, I believe the Genesis Project demands the highest ethical standards. In light of recent events that have raised serious concerns about character and judgment, I think it's prudent to conduct deeper due diligence on all potential partners, including Mr. Wilson's firm." I didn't need to elaborate. Mr. Henderson was a sharp man. He caught the message immediately. He gave me a slow, deliberate nod. "An excellent point, Amber. Thank you for your diligence." Then he turned to Richard, who had just approached the table. "Mr. Wilson," he said, his voice utterly drained of warmth, "perhaps we'll postpone our discussion indefinitely." Richard's face went slack. It was a quiet public execution. Not a bang, just a slow, humiliating unraveling. And I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt clean. In the parking lot, they followed us, faces pale. "Amber, wait," Richard pleaded. "You don't understand." Nathan stepped between us. "This was never about business," he said, voice calm but resolute. "This was about my daughter. You tried to use my wife while Mom emotionally abused my child. You made your choice." He looked at both of them. "Now we've made ours. Don't call us. Don't call Madison." He opened the car door for me. I stepped in, and we drove away without looking back. In the weeks that followed, the house was quiet. Not the unsettling kind of quiet that haunted me that awful day I came home early. No, this was different. It was soft healing, full of the sounds we'd forgotten to appreciate. Madison humming as she drew pictures, the gentle clink of cereal bowls in the morning, the low murmur of late-night television, as Nathan and I curled up on the couch, just breathing the same air. But under all that peace, I was still holding something tight in my chest, something like a bruise that wouldn't fade. I kept replaying Richard's words in my mind. "I'm trying to protect this family's future." The more I thought about it, the more twisted it became. What kind of man tries to secure a business contract by hurting a child, by alienating his granddaughter? It wasn't just Madison he'd underestimated. It was me. I'd worked too hard, built too much to let someone use me like a stepping stone. I wasn't the silent daughter-in-law they thought I was. I wasn't a placeholder. I was the gatekeeper. The Genesis project was nearing its final stages, and the short list of contractors had been submitted for board review. Richard's company, Wilson Contracting, was still technically on the list, but after that dinner, well, Mr. Henderson didn't say much. He didn't need to. The message was clear. A week later, I made it official. I filed a conflict of interest report, citing recent personal developments involving a potential vendor. It was clinical impersonal the way it had to be. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The committee flagged the entry, and within days, Wilson Contracting was quietly disqualified. I didn't gloat. I didn't announce it to Nathan or anyone else. I just slipped the report into my folder and walked out of the office like it was any other Tuesday. But there was something else I needed to do. Something not for revenge or justice, but for truth. Madison deserved to know that we saw her. That she mattered. Not just to me. Not just in whispers behind closed doors, but out loud. That night at dinner, I reached into the drawer and pulled out a blank scrapbook, the big kind with thick pages and leather binding. I placed it on the table beside Madison's plate. "What's that?" she asked, tilting her head. "It's something new," I said. "We're going to make it together." Nathan looked up from his fork. "What's the occasion?" I looked at both of them. "We're building something. Something just for us." Madison flipped open the cover. I had already written 3 simple words across the first page in bold, blocky letters, "The Reynolds Family Charter," she giggled. "Like, rules." "More like our own constitution," Nathan said, catching on quickly. "Exactly," I smiled. "We get to decide what matters most in this family." Madison grabbed a marker. "Can I write the first rule?" "Absolutely." She chewed her lip thoughtfully, then scrawled in big, uneven handwriting. "Rule number 1. Love is what makes a family." I felt my throat tighten. Nathan smiled softly and reached for the pen. "Rule number 2. We always listen to and protect each other." He passed the marker to me. I hesitated, then added, "Rule number 3. Friday night is always pizza and movie night. No exceptions." That one made Madison cheer. Over the next hour, we filled the pages with more rules, some serious, some silly. No yelling unless it's for tickle fights. Always knock before entering someone's room. Hugs are never mandatory, but always welcome. We glued in Polaroids, drew cartoons, and made lists of favorite songs. Madison doodled a big wobbly heart next to rule number 1, then colored it in with a pink highlighter. By the time she went to bed, the whole book smelled like pepperoni and markers. Nathan sat beside me on the couch afterward, the empty scrapbook wrapper still on the coffee table. "She seems lighter," he said, running a hand through his hair. "Happier." "I think she is." He looked at me then. "You did all this, Amber. You protected her. You stood up when I didn't." I shook my head. "We both did. Just at different times." He didn't argue, just leaned in and kissed my temple. The phone still rang now and then, mostly from blocked numbers, or family members still echoing Carol's version of events. Nathan ignored them. Eventually, so did I. The anger had dulled, not because they deserved forgiveness, but because I didn't want them owning any more of our energy. Still, part of me kept expecting Carol to show up on our doorstep one day like a ghost refusing to move on. But she never did. The last I heard, Wilson Contracting had lost 2 other bids that quarter. Rumors swirled about a possible audit. Nathan's cousin texted once saying Richard had been a nightmare to work for since the dinner. I never replied. Instead, I focused on the only thing that mattered. One Saturday morning a few weeks later, I woke up to the smell of pancakes and syrup. Madison was standing on a step stool in the kitchen, flipping one awkwardly shaped pancake, while Nathan supervised with exaggerated horror. "Chef Madison at your service," she said, grinning ear to ear. She wore one of Nathan's oversized flannel shirts as an apron and had flowers smudged across her nose. "You look like a 5-star mess," I teased, ruffling her hair. She beamed. And in that moment, everything else fell away. The bruises left by Carol's words, the pain of Nathan's guilt, the betrayal that had hollowed me out for weeks, it all seemed to dissolve. We were still standing. No, we were stronger. Together. It was strange in a way how quickly life started to feel normal again. Not the old normal, the one where we tiptoed around Nathan's parents and accepted crumbs as affection, but a new kind of peace. Honest. Clear. Still, one part of the storm remained: the professional fallout. About a month after the dinner, I was called into Mr. Henderson's office. I won't lie. My stomach twisted the entire elevator ride. He was a fair man, but he didn't tolerate drama. I hadn't told him everything that night at Avalon, only what was necessary. But still, I wondered if I'd overstepped. His assistant gave me a small smile as she waved me in. I stepped into the sunlit corner office, where he stood at the window, hands behind his back, watching the city below. "Amber," he said, turning around. "Come in." "Close the door." I did. "Saturday." He didn't speak right away, just looked at me with those sharp, assessing eyes. "I want to thank you," he finally said. I blinked. "Sir, for your professionalism at the dinner, and for your discretion afterward. I've since looked into Mr. Wilson's company. What I found supported your concerns." I didn't respond. I let him speak. "We've removed Wilson Contracting from not only Genesis," he continued, "but from future consideration as well. Quietly, of course. I'd appreciate your continued silence on the matter." "Of course," I said. He nodded once. Then, surprisingly, his tone softened. "I also want to say I understand what it costs someone to draw that kind of line, especially when it's personal." It caught me off guard. He wasn't a warm man, but there was something in his voice, a quiet respect that landed deep. "Thank you," I said quietly. As I walked out, I felt taller somehow. Not victorious exactly, but clean. Like the final thread tying me to the Wilsons had snapped, and I was free to build my own story now. That night, Nathan and I took Madison to an outdoor movie in the park. Just the three of us, with a blanket, kettle corn, and bug spray we barely used. She sat between us, arms looped through ours like we were her anchors. During the film, I felt her rest her head against my shoulder and sigh deeply. The kind of sigh that says, "I feel safe now." And it broke me in the best way. Still, the story wasn't quite finished. Because 3 weeks later, as if summoned by our silence, Carol called. It was a Thursday. Late. The phone rang once, then stopped. Then again. Nathan glanced at the screen. Blocked number. We both knew. He let it go to voicemail. The alert popped up moments later. He played it on the speaker. "Hi, Nathan. It's your mother. I know you don't want to hear from me, but I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about Madison. I miss her. We miss her. Please call us back. We can fix this." That was it. No apology. No mention of what she'd done. Just a thin coat of sentiment over the same manipulation. Nathan stared at the phone, his face unreadable. "I'm not calling her back," he said finally. "Are you okay with that?" "I'm better than okay with it," I said. But I could see the conflict in his eyes. He was still grieving the parents he thought he had. Later that night, as he held me in bed, he whispered, "I used to think loyalty meant sticking with your family no matter what. Now I realize it means protecting the ones who'd never hurt you." I held him tighter. The final test came a week later, when we attended Nathan's cousin Megan's wedding in Aspen. We almost skipped it, but Madison had been excited about the flower girl dress, and we didn't want her to miss out. The ceremony was gorgeous. White roses, a soft breeze sunlight falling through the aspen trees like golden ribbons. Madison twirled in her dress like it was made of clouds. She looked radiant. And then I saw them, Carol and Richard, standing stiffly by the bar. Carol's eyes locked on mine. She hesitated, then started toward us. Nathan tensed beside me. "Want me to stop her?" "No," I said. "Let her come." Carol reached us with a tight smile. She looked thinner, smaller somehow. "Amber," she said, then nodded to Nathan. "Can we talk, please?" Madison was off playing with the other kids. I glanced at Nathan. He nodded slowly. We stepped aside near a cluster of white folding chairs. "I know you're angry," she began. I raised a hand. "Don't." Her mouth opened, closed. I'm not interested in justifications, I said. I'm not interested in nostalgia. If you want to talk about what happened, then start by saying the truth. Carol swallowed. I was cruel to Madison. I treated her like she didn't belong. And I was wrong. I didn't respond, just waited. I wanted to feel like we still had a say in Nathan's life, she said. But I went about it in the worst way. There it was, not forgiveness, but accountability, the smallest seed of it. Nathan finally spoke. You broke something, Mom, and maybe it can't be put back together. But for Madison's sake, we'll think about what's best for her, not what's easiest for you. Carol nodded. For once, she didn't argue. They left before the cake was cut. Later that night, Madison danced barefoot under the string lights, her cheeks pink, her arms flapping like wings. Nathan pulled me in close, resting his chin on my head. She's happy, he whispered, because she's safe. We watched her spin, her laughter rising above the music. Light, untethered, free. 3 months later, our house didn't feel like the same place at all. The shadows were gone. Not just the ones in the corners, but the ones in our hearts, too. The ones that came from hesitation, from second-guessing ourselves, from thinking maybe they didn't mean it, or maybe it wasn't that bad. It was that bad. And now we finally believed in ourselves. The Reynolds family charter sat proudly on the coffee table pages, filled with messy handwriting, glitter glue, and the kind of truth only a child can write in crayon. Every Friday night, Madison picked the pizza toppings and the movie No Exceptions. She giggled every time she announced rule number 3 like she was delivering a presidential decree. Nathan always played along, mock bowing and saluting the commander of movie night. But more than the laughter, more than the routines, it was the shift in Madison that showed us we were doing it right. She was lighter, freer. She didn't flinch when the doorbell rang. She didn't hide behind me in public spaces. Her drawings grew more colorful, her stories more confident. Once when I tucked her in, she whispered, Mom, I like being me now. I kissed her forehead, my heart breaking and mending at the same time. I always liked being you. Nathan had changed too. He no longer defended his parents, not out of bitterness, but clarity. He'd stepped fully into his role as a father, not just in presence, but in conviction. He protected Madison like she was his breath because she was. And me, I stopped apologizing for drawing boundaries. I no longer shrank when people called me cold for cutting out toxicity. I smiled, I nodded, and I went on building our fortress. Because that's what it had become, a fortress. Not made of stone or secrets or pretense, but of love. Chosen love, protected love. The kind of love that says, I see you, I choose you, and I will never let them hurt you again. One quiet Sunday morning, Madison was coloring at the kitchen table when she asked Mom, will I ever have to see them again? I paused, setting down my mug of tea. No, sweetheart. Not unless you want to. She thought for a moment, then nodded. Okay, I don't. Later that day, we added a new rule to the charter. Rule number 17. We don't let people back in just because they say sorry. We all signed it. On Madison's 9th birthday, we invited her entire class to a park party. Nothing fancy, just cupcakes, bubbles, and a piñata that took way too many swings to break. But Madison didn't care. She ran across the grass with her crown crooked frosting on her chin, a plastic wand in her hand, and joy in her heart. I watched from the picnic table, my hands wrapped around a lemonade cup, Nathan's arms slung around my shoulder. She's okay, I said. She's better than okay, he replied. She's home. That evening, when the sun dipped behind the mountains and the last of the balloons floated into the sky, Madison curled up on the couch between us, the birthday crown still in place. Mom, yeah, baby, thank you for choosing me. I blinked back, the sting in my eyes. I'd choose you every time, Maddie. Every single time. She nodded, then whispered, I choose you too. There it was, our family. No bloodlines, no conditions, just a choice, repeated every day in little moments and big ones, in pizza slices and bedtime stories. In the words we said and the ones we didn't have to, somewhere along the way, we stopped surviving and started living. The phone calls eventually stopped. The whispers faded. The old ties that once bound us in guilt and fear unraveled thread by thread until they became nothing but a memory. And in their place, we built something new. That night after Madison fell asleep, Nathan and I stood at the window watching the stars wink through the velvet sky. The house was quiet, but the good kind. The kind that says everything is right. I used to think family was something you were born into, I whispered. Something you had to accept even when it hurt. But I was wrong. Nathan pulled me closer. What is it then? It's something you build, piece by piece, rule by rule, moment by moment. It's the people you choose to let inside, and the ones you keep out to protect what matters. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. Madison stirred in her room, murmuring something in a dream, and I smiled. Because I knew the truth now. We weren't missing anything. We weren't broken. We were whole. Together, when Amber Reynolds returned home early from a work trip, she never expected to find her adopted daughter Madison crying on the kitchen floor with red hands from scrubbing. The discovery shattered any illusion she had left about her in-laws. Carol and Richard had taken their real granddaughter to an amusement park while leaving Madison behind as punishment for a simple spill. That moment marked a turning point, a quiet storm building within Amber that would redefine everything. With her husband, Nathan finally seeing the abuse for what it was, the couple made a bold decision, cut ties with the toxic family they once tried so hard to appease. But what began as a protective act soon unraveled a deeper betrayal. Richard's manipulative interest in Amber's career was tied to his business ambitions. A quiet takedown at a formal dinner sealed their break from the Wilsons both professionally and personally. Instead of mourning the loss of extended family, Amber, Nathan, and Madison began building something better. The Reynolds family charter became their new foundation, filled with rules not of control, but of love, safety, and chosen connection. Through quiet nights, laughter, and healing, they didn't just survive, they flourished. By the end, the message was clear: blood may run through veins, but love builds the home. Family isn't inherited, it's earned, protected, and fiercely chosen. And in a world full of hurt, sometimes the greatest act of love is saying no more and starting again.